Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be with you again this week. I want to spend just 5 or 10 minutes going over 3 of the projects you're going to be involved in this week. One of the challenges that I see a course on interviewing that's being done online is that this is the kind of course where you do some reading. You don't necessarily have to memorize things, but you need to perform, you need to prepare and perform. And I'm trying to set up situations where you'll get an opportunity to do that and also to observe. One of the great books that I've read in my lifetime is Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. And in that book, the character who is the narrator tells a story about teaching students in a little university in Montezuma, Montana, and how it was difficult for these students, they were freshman composition students, it was difficult for them to just write about things. They were so used to reading something and then regurgitating that, and I think that can be a problem in almost anything that you learn. So what I've done this week is to set up something where you'll have a chance to actually observe and come up with your observations and your thoughts, etc., rather than just communicating back to me and to the others what you've read. And that assignment will be involved in a listening exercise, and you'll have more details. You'll see more details in some of the other categories for week number 3. But essentially what I want you to do is I want you to, over the course of the next 3 or 4 days, to observe just a couple situations you may be in where you're in a discussion or you're observing some people discuss an issue or communicating in some way. Or you could go on a television station, and if you see an exchange, interview if you will, what I want you to do is I want you to list some of the things that you're seeing and hearing. I look at listening, by the way, as just not hearing words, but it also is seeing. And the kinds of questions that anybody, I think, taking a course in interviewing should ask is, what's the tone of the person's voice who's speaking, whether it's he or she's asking a question or answering a question, and what is this person trying to communicate? Very often when you see exchanges, let's say from a reporter to a reporter who is interviewing a candidate for an office or a politician in a particular office, you can kind of read between the lines, and you can ask yourself, well, the politician or the government official or the corporate head is saying one thing, but is there something else going on? And sometimes we can kind of intuit that, but I want you to look at they have to be ordinary conversations. Ask yourself, okay, what's going on here? What kind of judgments can you make about the individuals who are speaking and what their motives are and so forth? And I'll have more details you'll see more details in the description I give you of this assignment. The other assignment that you'll have this week is assignment that deals with checklists. I'm asking you to read 2 documents that are from the work of Atul Gawande, who is a surgeon at the Brigham and Women's Hospital. I think I mentioned him in one of my lectures earlier. And he and a group of doctors and nurses are single-handedly responsible for saving lives and saving millions of dollars because they've instituted checklists for every procedure you can imagine in a hospital. And as I may have mentioned earlier as well, we always associate checklists with aviation. and I think his name's Sullenberger. He's the pilot whose plane lost their engines. Actually, they all blew out because they ran into some geese coming out of LaGuardia Airport, and you all, I'm sure, know about that story, how he landed the plane in the southern end of Manhattan in the Hudson, and everyone was saved. And the reason why is because he and his team followed very strict checklists. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you analyze the interview, think about an interview, and I want you to come up with 4 or 5 or 6 kinds of things that you would use in a checklist in evaluating an interview and how effective it was. And again, you'll have more information, that I've written explaining that assignment. And also, too, I think you'll gain some insights from the 2 things that I've asked you to read. And also, I will be asking, just to spur you on, I'll be asking some questions and asking you to think about the 3 elements that I've talked about repeatedly. That is, who's the speaker, who is the audience, and what is the message. Now, the third thing that assignment that I want you to do this week deals with being on the other side of an interview, that is, being the subject of an interview. And I did note that a number of you, when you introduced yourselves, talked about how important it was for you to develop skills in interviewing, in being interviewed, especially job interviews and so forth. And they're very, very important. And someone had mentioned that maybe interviewing wasn't as critical in an area of social media and so forth, but I would disagree with that, because in the area of social media, more and more people are going online and presenting themselves. Presenting yourself, whether it's through social media, through a video, or in a job interview, is very, very important. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to present to you, I think I did it in, I did do it in the description of this project. I want you to start thinking about some tough questions that typically are asked when someone is interviewed. And one of the toughest questions is when someone asks, well, tell me about yourself. That is both a great opportunity and a great danger, and it all depends on how you position yourself. And how I look at it is this way. Everybody has a story to tell. Everybody. And if you dig deep enough, they're pretty interesting stories. And when you go to a job interview, and if you're going for a big job or if you're going to be advanced and so forth, and someone says, tell me about yourself. What I want you to do is I want you to think about that question, and then I want you to write down 4 or 5 points about telling this story. And let me give you an example of some of the things I'm going to ask you to have asked you to consider. One would be your strongest skills, and think about that and list them. Another area is what's your greatest area of knowledge. It's a very important one. And what are your strongest personality characteristics? What are your real strengths in that area? And then what are some of your key accomplishments? And then what I want you to do is consider a particular job that you would like to go for, and I want you to write down exactly, I want to go for this job. I'm going to be interviewed by the chief financial officer of this company or the chief communications officer. And then what I want you to do is make a pitch. How would you answer that question? Tell me about yourself. What I've done is I've given you some examples of how you might approach that. But you have to be, you have to tell something about yourself. You've got to be confident in how you present yourself, but you also have to be not too, you can't be cocky, I guess that's the best way to say it, but also too, if there are areas in the job that you haven't experience with, you might indicate that and be honest, but then you have a strong point to back that up. No, I haven't managed a group of people before, but I have organized, and I've been an event planner, and I've organized many events and worked with people on a regular basis, so in a way I have done that. There are the 3 projects that I want you to work on this week. I also would like to ask you, if you have any questions, please, you can either send me an email, you can call me if you want, or ask the instructor. There's that little blog that we have. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to our discussions this week. Thank you very much.